Hi, welcome. Welcome to the session, whether you're here with me live on LearnitLive or watching the recording at a later time. Welcome. My name is Sarah Evans. I'm here based in Sheffield, UK, and I am an Akashic Records reader as well as a yoga teacher, Reiki master, meditation guide, medium, psychic, I guess, lots of different things. But today I really wanted to, for this session, so this symposium is the Pause and Reflect Week of Wellness and Spirituality. And I really just thought this was a really great moment for me to kind of help to kind of bring it all together in terms of what I do and how I help people. And a lot of that is all about the Akashic Records. So if you're brand new to the Akashic Records and you've got no idea what I'm talking about, let me just try and explain it in a nutshell. I have a definition I wrote down here. Um, so Akasha is taken from the Sanskrit word for open space, sky, ethers, but it's probably most useful to think of it as kind of like a cosmic energy field or a database library of all of your experiences, all of the data of every lifetime, every timeline, every emotion, thought, experience that your soul has ever had. Past, present, future is all contained in your Akashic library. I know that sounds intense, and it is, but it's also such an incredible tool. And I am so glad to have found it. I don't think I'll tell you about my story, and you'll see that it wasn't very accidental that I found it, that it was meant to be. But I'm really glad to be doing this work. It's amazing, to be honest. And yeah, so basically, when you have a Akashic Records reading, whether you pay someone or someone does one for you, or whether you try and do your own Akashic Records reading, spoiler alert, I'm not going to have time to talk about how to do your own readings in this session. But that's definitely something that I advocate and encourage people who are interested. Anybody can learn how to go into your own records. Um, but it's like when you go into your records, it's kind of like a Google search of your whole soul, basically. And it's also, I find for me, it's very uplifting. I'm actually in my Akasha records right now, by the way. So it definitely helps me to feel higher in frequency, to feel very uplifted, very yeah, it's a good feeling because essentially you're closer to source energy when you're in your Akashic records or the Akasha as it's more broadly known. Um, but in my mind, it is the tool that can be the most healing, the most beneficial out of different modalities. And I have, in fact, over the years used my own Akashic records and channeled through my Akashic records to produce a channeling podcast, to produce yoga classes, to produce Reiki sessions. It is just it's a great tool. And so let's get into it. So yes, so the session today is I want to talk about spiritual awakenings, my own spiritual awakening. Feel free to enter in the chat about your own spiritual awakening if you want to, or maybe you are at the cusp of beginning to find out about things, in which case, welcome. Um, and also, it's probably fair to say that spiritual awakening is not like a one and done thing, that it's kind of like a progression, right? And you feel like as you're awakening and learning and appreciating more, you kind of get to a certain level and then you might like level up and something else opens and your head kind of like feels like it's about to explode and again and again. And so that's kind of like how it's been for me. I would say that I have always had clairvoyance or clear sight and clairaudience, where you hear voices. I've always had both of those through my whole life from being a young child, but I didn't realize what it was. I didn't realize what it was for a long, long, long time. And it was actually in the COVID pandemic where I really kind of broke me open in and finding out about this. So it's been quite a rapid progression for me, and I know that it has been for a lot of people too at this time. I'm not going to go deeply into my COVID and long COVID journey simply because I've talked about it so many other times in so many different places. But I did get very ill and I did have a lot of bed rest. And through that experience, and I had a near-death experience actually where a COVID infection caused double pneumonia. And I was very, very ill. And that's when I saw my grandparents around my bed and they were speaking to me. And at the time, or shortly after, I wondered if it was a hallucination, but it wasn't. And I think that moment was like a bit of a breaking point moment for me. And then as I progressed through my disability journey with long COVID, more and more things opened up. And actually, I started to speak to my grandparents in spirit. Like I used to hear them in my head, and I'd be having these conversations, and it felt so real. And I could hear their voices just completely clearly. And it was actually, it got to the point in 2021, this was, that I just thought, I don't know if this is real or not. And so I booked a session with a psychic medium that was local to here. And she started the session, she's just like, oh, yes, your grandfather's here. And he says, it's not your imagination, we are speaking to you. So I was like, okay. Okay, so that's the kind of backstory of where I'm coming from with this, that I do have some innate abilities that I've always had. But the Akashic Records has really completely turbocharged all of that to the nth degree. And actually, it was via a podcast that I first heard about the Akashic Records. It was at Christmas time, and I was listening to a podcast as I was cooking in my kitchen. And it was actually a podcast on a completely different topic. It was a podcast about parenting, completely not related, not spiritual at all. But the person that we interviewed in that, she was just like, yeah, and hi, and she introduced herself, and she said, and I'm an Akashic Records reader, and she talked a little bit about it, and something kind of like went off, like alerted when I heard this. And maybe for you, you might be listening to me speaking about it now and have a similar reaction. If it's something that you feel drawn towards, there's a reason for that. But it kind of triggers something, and I immediately just looked on my phone and I found the speaker and I found her on Instagram and I messaged her and I was just like, tell me more about the Akashic Records reading. And that's when she said, I learnt via Linda Howe. And Linda Howe, by the way, is on LearnitLive as well. Full circle moment there. But I grabbed the Linda Howe book on Kindle, I think the very next day. It felt so like necessary and urgent for me to find out what is this. And it was interesting because as I was reading it on the Kindle, I got waves and waves of chills. Like I just like it felt like I was almost like electric or something. I just got so many chills. And these days I know from speaking with spirit that that is them merging their energy fields with you, and it's kind of like a spirit hug, and it was an encouragement to keep going. So if you get chills doing something, that's another little tip. That it's your team and loved ones in spirit who are giving a little push and urging you to explore this further. But I was reading through the Linda Howe book, and I actually fell into my records completely by accident. Because in the Linda Howe approach, she talks about a pathway prayer. I would say, I mean, I have greatest respect to Linda Howe. Obviously, I am indebted to her for getting me to this place. But I do find her work to be a little bit more Christian in background than I personally am most aligned with. So I don't use the pathway prayer anymore. I use something else. But I was reading the pathway prayer and I literally just read it in my head and I accidentally opened my Akasha records completely by accident, completely unintentionally. I didn't realize that when you read something in your mind that it can do it. And to be honest, I am called to do this work. It's one of my main purposes in this lifetime. Is that maybe I did fall into it so easily for reasons. But yeah, I it was very intense because I suddenly felt like really different, and I suddenly could see. Actually, I saw fractals like flying past my line of sight. It's like I was kind of like in like a fractal, like I don't know, a tunnel or something. It's hard to describe. But I was just like, whoa, what is going on? And I was a bit kind of freaked out. And so that's the reason why, by the way, that when I do private sessions with people, I don't record the opening and closing simply because it can be a bit freaky if you fall into Akashic Records by accident. So it's like, I try to prevent that from happening to other people. Um, but yes, I'm sorry, I'm just looking at my notes. Yeah, so I mean, it progressed from there really. I did start asking on a community channel on Quora actually. One of my main mentors is Richard Martini. And I started asking him about this, and I mentioned about the fractals, and I was just like, "What's going on?" And like, does this make sense to you? And he was very affirmative and very encouraging with that, and actually helped mentor me through this process. Um, but it was through my first forays into this space that I learnt obviously a lot more about my soul's purpose in this lifetime. And actually, I'm happy to share that when I asked about my soul's purpose, they said um, to be a conduit of love and light. And at first, I was just like, that's vague. Like, I don't know if that means, but I have to say now, a few years down the line, now I understand exactly what that was about. And it relates to my Reiki healings that I do and all of the work that I do. But I do try in all of my offerings to be a conduit of love and light, essentially. Um, but so in the Akashic Records, you can find out about your soul's other lifetimes. And spoiler alert to anyone who might be at the beginning of the awakening journey. Like, obviously, if you don't believe in reincarnation, fair. But I have to say, I haven't met anybody yet who hasn't had other lifetimes. Okay. And it has been in the hundreds and hundreds at this point. But personally, I learnt about my a parallel lifetime, which is actually one of the keepers of the Akashic Library, someone called Kay. And so, actually, concurrently to my lifetime as Sarah Evans, I also have a lifetime that's running right now. In fact, many people would argue that all lifetimes are concurrently running, but that's the whole of a conversation, and let's not get into the whole breakdown of space and time entirely, shall we? It's a bit big for right now. Um, but basically, I learned about the fact that Kay is a keeper of the records, and so there's lots of different entities, different roles within the Akashic Library to maintain this obviously very, very incredibly vast, infinite database. And so Kay is a keeper of the records. Sorry, I'm in my records now, and she wants to say something. Yes, she's sharing that. So, a keeper of the records is different than a librarian of the records. In fact, Five, which Judy mentioned before, is a librarian. So, librarians have. Sorry, I'm getting told. Um, she's saying that librarians have a much more comprehensive role in the curation of the records, whereas keepers of the records. Um, So she describes it more as like cleaning staff that are kind of maintaining the space and keeping things energetically tidy. She's literally showing like a dustpan and brush, like as a way of describing that. So anyway, so Kay is somebody that assists me in my own forays into the Akashic Records, and when I do Akashic Records readings, she's obviously assisting me with that process. So that's just a little bit about that. Um, yeah, Five is also here. So Five is one of the main librarians of the Akashic Records. He's very small looking. He kind of I don't really want to describe it because he gets a bit offended. But he's a bit kind of gnome-like to me or something like that. He's a bit like Yoda. Um, but he's actually encouraging you to explore this space. He says everybody has their own Akashic library, and it's for you. It's of you, and it's for you. And we want to promote the awareness and usage of this essential resource, he says, to as many people as possible. Okay, thank you. All right. So, where am I? Sorry, I feel like I'm just talking at you. We will spend some time in about 10 minutes going through your questions and also like doing a bit more free channeling. Um, but yes, okay, most profound healing resource. So why is it the most profound re healing resource? And actually, what Five just said speaks to that a little bit, that it's your Akasha records of your lifetimes. And I find that every time I enter the Akasha records, they always tell me exactly what I need to know in that moment for my highest good and well-being. I've had so many things. The person that asked if do I am I in the Akashic Records every day? The answer to that question is there has been times, yes, that I have been, and there is I don't know if I call it a risk, but there is definitely you could spend all of your time in the Akashic Records and it would feel lovely and you would, get a lot out of it, literally. But I can't do that because I am actually a mum, a wife. I have to be in the physical. And there are times when I can be like, I can be on a walk and I can be in my records and on a walk or something like that. But it's kind of a heightened frequency. So, like a heightened experience. And it's just not useful as somebody having a human lifetime to be constantly in the records. But having said that, I do channel most of my work through the records, so I am in there a fair amount, so, but not every day at this point. Yeah, so I wanted to share a little bit about healing experiences, a couple of examples. I mean, I could talk about examples all day long, but I don't have enough time for that. In fact, that's something that Richard Martini is encouraging me to write a book about all of these experiences. And yes, maybe one time I will get around to writing that book and sharing about some of these profound experiences that people have had. Um, but I'll share a couple. So one sitter, so one lady came through. Let's call her Kate. That's not her real name, but so Kate came in and she didn't really tell me very much about herself. But we opened up the records, and she asked me, could we go to a lifetime that's most negatively impacting this lifetime? Okay, that's a common question that I get asked about. And so they actually took me into like a battlefield experience, and it was like I think medieval France, and it was a really intense moment. And so Kate in that lifetime was a man, and in this like chain mail and wearing this very particular, I think, Norman hat, and not hat, helmet. And there was this moment where they were trying to attack. It was a rebellion, actually. They were looking up at his castle to attack it, and his helmet fell off. And at that moment, a crossbow arrow came and boop, went right into the head. And I was like, oh, okay, that's weird. And she was just like, okay. And so Kate said, oh my goodness, thank you for telling me this because she has, I hope I'm not going to pronounce this wrong, aphantasia, which is where she has no, when she closes her eyes and trying to picture something, she has no internal inner sight. And so the records were telling her that that was the reason why this was happening in this lifetime. And she was just like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. And she was so excited. And we actually booked a couple of more sessions. And in those sessions, I did a guided meditation, obviously channeling via the records, where we went into that lifetime and we sent it light and we changed the actual outcome so that that didn't happen to her. And I also did another remote Reiki session where I eased the third eye space and I opened it up and resolved that past life trauma. And then now she can see, she can daydream, and it worked. It fixed it, and like that's one of my absolute favorite like success stories or whatever you want to call it. Do we have time for one more? Do you enjoy the stories? I can share more stories. Yes. Okay, I'm getting some. Oh, yes, we'll get into how to book individual sessions. Absolutely. In fact, I have a Black Friday sale that I'm going to share at the end of this session. So stay tuned for the Black Friday discount codes. But I'll tell you one more. So one more session was someone called, let's say, Janet. And so she came to me and she'd been having a really hard time. She was feeling a bit lost, a bit like not really aware of bit directionless, which is a common thing that people come for Akashic Records and for healing work generally about. But we went into her Akashic Records and they wanted to tell her about, sorry, these are both past life experiences, which is only one tiny aspect of everything that you can do in the Akashic Records, but it's just like one of the better stories to tell. But we went into a lifetime where she was actually prosecuted for a witchcraft. She was actually like a herbalist healer, and she was, I think, she ended up being drowned for witchcraft. You know, the whole that era where they would do that to women, predominantly women. But we went into all of that, and I spoke to her in that lifetime, and she felt like this like amazing bond and resonance. And actually, she kept coming. So she's actually based here in Sheffield, and I do in-person Reiki sessions. And she actually started booking weekly Reiki sessions, and we were working through all of this. And she was just connecting more and more to what people often call a witch wound. I'm not sure if that's necessarily the best terminology, but that's what a lot of people know it as. But we really healed this witch wound to the degree that she now has she decided to get multiple tattoos of aspects of that lifetime and that part of that soul's journey for her. It did, in fact, it wasn't just that one lifetime, by the way. So every soul tends to have certain patterns that repeat time and again. And for her, about empowerment and about embracing her inner strength and inner power was something that kept coming up for her. And so yeah, she now I see her now and she's got multiple tattoos on her arms and stuff, and it's just like I'm like, wow, okay. It's not, when I came into this work, I wasn't expecting that sort of outcome, but great. I'm here for it. I'm here for whatever happens. It's all good. Um, but yeah, so I wanted to just touch on a little bit about how I channel as well. So obviously I do private readings, private Akashic Records readings, but I also use my Akashic Records to channel a lot of great material. It's just like, I mean, I started off as a yoga teacher, right? And so when I started to go into my Akashic records, it's like a no-brainer to start asking pointed questions about, okay, what's the most healing yoga techniques? What is the best pranayama for healing and things like this. And so most of my yoga classes from the last 3 years are actually actively planned and channeled via the Akasha. Sometimes I will go in first and come up with a lesson plan based on the support and help of the Akasha. Other times, particularly if I'm feeling like run down or just like particularly like blah or uninspired, I have actually done like conducted an entire 1 hour yoga class whilst in my Akasha records, and I'll just literally be channeling through. It's like quite intense. And that's actually what I do, by the way, for my Reiki sessions. So I do monthly Reiki sessions here on Learn It Live. They tend to be on a Thursday. It's usually the third Thursday of the month. This time it's actually Thanksgiving next Thursday. That is my next session. And so I actually do use the Akashic records to channel. So it basically helps me to like as I'm performing the Reiki healing, a lot of like the visuals and the information coming through that I'm just kind of like telling you, this is, do this, like listen to this, think of that. So that is me channeling from the Akashic Records. And I have done a lot of guided meditations that are essentially channeling from the records. And probably the most obvious example is I actually have a channeling podcast, Into the Blue Channeling, and that is all channeled via the Akashic Records. And it's, if you're into channel messages, and then I recommend you look it up. And yes, so I think that's close to everything I wanted to mention. So we'll get into Q&A. And I can answer questions as myself, Sarah, or if you want, I can answer questions through my Akashic records. So obviously, I'm in my own Akashic records right now. So they'll speak to any topic, but it's obviously not your personal records. You know what I mean? So if you have very personal questions, then a private session might be useful for you. But otherwise, we will get started on some questions. In fact, I had a couple written down here that came up earlier. Connecting Reiki with Akasha. How did I cover that sufficiently? That I use my Akasha records to do Reiki healings. I do find that my Reiki healing style does tend to be quite quantum, quite quantum in focus. So there's a lot of multi-dimensionals that come and assist, be it goddesses, angels, archangels. It gets busy. And I think that that is more to do with the fact that I'm also a Akashic Records reader, that kind of like they kind of come in and they assist. sort of thing. But if you have any other pointed questions about Reiki and Akasha, I can go into that a bit more. Um, oh, yes, someone asked me the qualities you need to access. Okay, so actually, I'll let them answer this question. So, what qualities does someone need to access? They say all you need is an open mind. All you need is an open mind. But also, so I have decades of meditation experience as obviously a yoga teacher. So it's really helpful to do meditative work, and that will help you to read your own records. Um, so saying open mind, but also to believe that you're actually connecting. Like feel in your body that frequency that I mentioned earlier, like it feels different and you can just sit in it. They're saying if your first foray into your own records, it's useful to just get an eye mask on, get noise cancelling headphones in, kind of do like a blackout and just kind of sit there and observe. So don't ask any questions, just take it in because it is a lot. It is a lot at first. But anybody can do this. And something that I do in my private sessions, so I always actually ask to go into and have a look at the person's Akashic library and have a look at their own Akashic records because every soul has a completely different Akashic library and a completely different presentation of their Akashic records. I have seen like everything you can think of, from like a tropical greenhouse to like more of like a collegiate looking thing. I've seen records on scrolls, on floppy disks, on fractals. The other day I had one on an embroidery. Like they come completely different and everybody is completely different. And I like telling people what theirs is like because it helps them if they decide to go in themselves, they can be like, okay, I'm seeing what Sarah described, so I'm in the right place, sort of thing. You know what I mean? So yes. Okay, so let's look through the questions. There's one that came up. I mentioned that it just I saw. Okay, I wanted to answer Rhonda's question. Can demons speak through spirit during spirit readings? Okay. So I guess your question is, can denser energies come through? And my answer to that is possibly, but if you set the intention that they're not allowed. So my own opening for my Akasha records is for my highest good. So only things of light, love, truth, pure consciousness for my highest good or better can come in. All right. And so far, you know, touch wood. So far, I've never had anything come through that's not for myself's highest good or for the highest good of the people that are listening to me doing the channeled messaging. So yeah, I think intention is important. Um, Obviously, having energetic and spiritual hygiene is helpful as well for your own ability to read. But yeah, anyone can do this, and it doesn't need to be scary. In fact, no, it's not scary at all. It can feel a little intense, but it's not scary. For the people raising your hands, can you write in the chat? Because I'm not going to unmute anybody for this session. Um, I'm even so, thanks you. You said it's powerful and beautiful. Thank you. Um, okay, so Rhonda's saying the reason I ask is because a preacher said that readings are not of God. What do you think about this? Okay. So what I think about that, okay, there's a larger thought about that, which is that I I was from a child brought up in the Catholic Church, and I definitely so I've kind of experienced the kind of more Christian Catholicism approach to these things, and for me, very from an early age, it just never sat right with me. It didn't make sense to me. What they were teaching, it just didn't really make sense to me. And again, this could be a much larger conversation. But for me personally, my own belief systems and what I've experienced over years of doing this work and helping people, is that it's yeah. I mean, I'm a channel of love and light. I don't let in other things. And I'm not going to get in any deeper than that. But I let's just say I disagree with what that one particular person said to you, Rhonda. Okay. Um, oh, Shawnee, you said it had a synchronicity about hearing about witch runes. You're welcome. Well, thanks, Judy. Judy mentioned that she's had a session with me. And she made you. Oh, thank you. That's a lovely review. Um, nice, thank you. I'm just looking for questions. Okay, so someone else asks, it's actually Rhonda again, asks, do you see all your past lives in your Akashic records? Okay, so I mean, you could, but it would take a while. Um, I'm gonna see what the Akasha has to say about this. So I have my own perspective, but I want to hear what they've got to say. Okay. So they're saying that if you are a young soul, if you've had fewer than 100 lifetimes, then sure, you can view all of your past lives. Um, they're saying for people, for souls like myself, that have had closer to 8,000 lifetimes, it gets a little time consuming. Um, so what I often say to people that are really interested in past lives in a particular topic is, as I often suggest, shall we visit the past life that's having the most impact on this one, or was the most relevant to this one, or things like that, or is a past life that would be the most exciting or the most uplifting, or something like that. A lot of past lives experiences are about looking into where things went wrong, let's say. When I first started doing record readings for people, then they used to say, "Okay, can we go into a past life?" I would like. Full disclosure, I would go, my heart would sink a little because I'd be like, oh no, I'm about to experience another traumatic death. Because for me personally, a lot of the time, actually, there's something else that's important to mention is that everybody's Akashic library and Akashic records have different clairs and different sensations occur. Obviously I shared about being able to hear and see, but when I'm giving records readings for people, some records will come through with a lot of sensations. Other records will lots of smells, lots of tastes, like different things. But something that often happens to me is that they will make me experience the past life trauma as if it's happening to me, which can be a little bit like, but I've managed to kind of get more comfy with it. But for a while, I was a bit like, oh, do we have to? Do we have to? It can be a bit dark. But in fact, like, in response to the earlier question about like darkness and stuff, I think the darkest things are actually experiences that people have had in this earthly realm, in planet Earth, in the 3D. A lot of other places are quite different. And a lot of the darker experiences that I've had through the Akashic Records have been kind of quite earthbound, earth-based. So yeah. Let's jump on to some more questions. Okay, so the question here, is it possible to quantum heal the future through the Akashic Records? Okay, let's answer that question first. Is it possible to quantum heal the future through Akashic Records? The future is an interesting topic actually, because that's the one topic of questions that I receive the most pushback from the Akasha, because there's a reason for this. It's because they don't want to take you off your trajectory for your own life lessons and growth and evolution as a soul, right? So they don't want to just give you all the answers of what's going to happen and things like that. In fact, Linda Howe says that you can't ask a single question about the future. And I actually disagree with that because I have learned that there's ways to kind of like ask around, and you can often receive information that tends that's future based. In fact, Judy has an interesting experience from that she might want to share in the chat. But there's ways and ways of asking about future events. Of course, future events are all subject to change because we have our own free will, and we also have competing timelines. But that's another wider conversation for another day, probably. But to answer your question, is it possible to quantum heal the future through the Akashic records? I would say yes. Let's see what they've got to say. They're saying absolutely yes. In fact, that's a lovely thought and very beneficial, particularly for humanity at this time, which, as we know, there's a lot occurring all at once, and we can influence future outcomes by positive thoughts, by sending energy healing towards future events, things of that nature. And so, yes, you can, through the Akashic records, they can assist you with quantum healing in general, but quantum healing of the future in particular. Um, they actually said, "Come on in, the water's fine." They're inviting you to come in and try that. Okay. In fact, that's a great topic for a future Reiki session that I might do on LearnitLive. Maybe the Christmas one can be for the future positive future events. Yeah, I want to sing there. Um, all right, let's just have a look at the other questions. I want to get through as much as possible for as many people as possible, and I see there's a lot of questions. Um, okay, so Stacey's sharing that she's tried to connect to her own Akasha records before, but um, she found it quite difficult. See if I struggle to believe. She struggles to believe that what she's seeing is real. Does she have do I have advice around that? Let's see what they've got to say. So let's see what the Akashic Records have to say about this. They say everybody is capable of entering their own records. It's most useful to remember that it's yours. It's your records of your soul's lifetimes. It is yours for the taking, they're saying. But yes, particularly if you have not utilized psychic clairs too much in the past, this can feel like a hurdle to cross. Um, they're encouraging you to practice. They say practice makes perfect. It's like they're suggesting it's like so like meditation. If you practice meditation, it's a bit like strengthening a muscle, like over, it gets stronger and stronger and easier as the so they're showing me this really intense image about neuro neuroscience and about new synapses connecting, new connections being made to strengthen different parts of the brain. Okay. Um, yes. So they're saying with practice you can improve on this. Of course, Stacey and anybody listening, I am here. I can assist you with this journey. I do private sessions. I love to help people, and I will, in 5 minutes, put in the information about next steps around that. They said practice. Oh, so Stephanie says, when it comes to past lives, is that why some people do not fully live present life or leave your present life? I have someone who repeatedly left and returned to my life in the past 2 years. It has left me wondering why this is happening. Hmm. Okay. Okay, so what I'm getting is that this is actually it's not so much necessarily related to past lives in particular, but that it is an experience of soul family members. So there are particular souls that like to incarnate and reincarnate frequently together. And you have soul family and then also your soul group. So your soul family is a smaller group of up to 100. And then the soul group, so soul family is up to 100, soul group is up to 300 usually. So if they're saying if someone keeps reappearing, or if you recognize somebody, you're like, I've seen you before, I've never met you before, but I have met you before, then it can be a member of your soul group. In fact, that's an interesting background story to the Into the Blue channeling podcast. Is I used to do it with my good friend Laurie, and we actually were in a online book club together, and we'd never met before, but we saw each other and we were like, I know you. I know you. And we have a interview on YouTube all about that if you're interested in that topic. Um, okay. How many timelines can be awaiting for you? Uh, Let's see. How many timelines can be awaiting for you? Let's ask. Laura asks how many timelines can be awaiting. They're showing me grains of sand on a beach. They're saying how long is a piece of string, how many grains of sand are in the ocean. Um, a lot, a lot of different timelines. Okay, they're actually saying there's an it's an interesting time right now around timelines because there are so many timelines occurring, and every time they're saying every time that you make a decision, there's like a fork in the road, and you can make one decision and make another decision on anything, be it, whether you're getting full fat milk or skimmed milk at the store, anything. Your timelines will split, and there'll be at the timeline of the full fat milk and the timeline of the non-fat milk. And they're saying that so these timelines where they split and divide, and you can have these parallel experiences running at the same time as the experience that you're consciously experiencing. Um, they're saying this is a particularly interesting moment because there are so many, but uh, it's going to change and it's going to they're going to merge more in future. But I hope that wasn't too kind of like that emoji of your mind exploding. Interesting topic. Interesting topic. Um, Oh, Judy says they want me to go to your Reiki healing on Thanksgiving. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry, I was someone allowed to leave, but um, can we get a specific, easy to follow practice routine for beginners? Um, yes. There's a book for that. Not my book, but the Linda Howe book is how I found out about all of this and how you can too. And it does have some tips about how to get started for yourself. Um, yeah, sorry, I kind of made your head explode about the timeline possibilities. It wasn't me, it was them. It was the Akasha that did it. Um, all right, I'm just going to go back up through the chat and look for more questions. Uh, Feel free to write in if I've not answered your question. If you've got a hand raised, feel free to write into the chat your question again so that I see it and answer. Um, Otherwise, I'm seeing maybe that's everybody. In which case, it's probably a good moment to segue into my Black Friday deal and things like that. Um, okay, so I'll go into announcements and things like that. I have some links that I'm putting in the chat. Okay, so I'm going to try to do them individually. So, link number one, my next remote Reiki healing is actually on Thanksgiving, and Spirit has told me that it is grounding through change. I'm not quite sure what that means just yet. Do they want to say? Yeah, so that's working on grounding and the root chakra, the lower chakras from sacral, solar plexus, and root, but about having flexibility with grounding. Like they're saying, like how there's like a storm and there's so much happening, and yet this tree is managing to stay rooted despite the storm swaying and the seasons changing and things happening. So that's what that's about. Oh, I've got a question. Do any guides pull double duty guiding for multiple people? Yes, I have a great example of that. One of my guides is actually one of my main mentors' guides. So Jamie Butler actually trance channels Maitland, and she is one of my guides that helps me too now. So yes, absolutely, they can guide for multiple people. Um, You know what? I'm running out of time, so let me just continue on with sharing my links in the chat. Um, so Number two, so my Black Friday offer, drumroll please, is 3 for 2 offer on private sessions. So I do private sessions. Here's the link to my private sessions. So you can book on my website for an online private session with me. But as I described earlier, I do tend to find that people that book with me want to book again and again, that like it kind of it's a bit like opening up a can of worms. Like we find out so much, we do lots of great work in a 1 hour session, but I often find that it leads to needing to come back again and again for different, for whatever the person wants to do next. So if you want to take advantage of seeing me for 3 hours for the price of two, then click on that link and go have a look at that. Judy's agreeing with me. Um, all right, now I'll put the last links in as well. So I also have, I've not got the link for that here, but on my website I have my what I call my sanctuary space, which is well over 50 hours actually of yoga and Reiki and guided meditations. So my sanctuary space, I'm offering a Black Friday deal because it's usually a monthly subscription price, but I'm offering for the annual subscription price for for it to be a permanent purchase. So if anyone who loves what I do and wants to take advantage of that, any orders that come in until the 1st of December for the annual price, I'm going to just set it for forever, for perpetual access. Okay, so that's the other Black Friday deal. Yes, coming in. So my YouTube channel. So my website. I'll put my website in again. So here's my website. SarahEvans.co is my website. And I did put the link in earlier, but I'll just put it in again. My podcast, I actually have two podcasts actually, but the podcast that's most relevant for today is the Into the Blue Channeling podcast, and that's found on YouTube. So on YouTube are the actual videos of it, so you can watch me like this. In fact, I'm going to stick this recording on YouTube most likely after this session. But that's it's also available on any podcast site like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, RSS feed, the whole shebang for the audio version. And then lastly, I wanted to talk about my course. So I have run this course twice before. So this is my third time running this course, which is the Connecting to Loved Ones in Spirit via Meditation course. And again, full disclosure, I used my Akashic records to channel the course content. But basically it helps people whether you have you're brand new to meditation and you want to develop meditation abilities, or if you've practiced meditation before but you want to connect more with your loved ones in spirit, who by the way are always with you and always wanting to connect, then this is the course for you. In 5 weeks we learn a whole range of different techniques. Every session has one brief meditation, and then me like teaching you stuff, and then a longer meditation towards the end. But if you wish to take the course, I've put in the chat the link. It's on LearnitLive, and there's a discount code for those who are watching this. The discount code is in the chat. I would love to see you there. And I think we're at time. So thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much, everybody that is listening live or watching this on the recording. I'm Sarah Evans. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you here. My Akashic Records guides and loved ones are saying that they are also really glad that you came, and they look forward to seeing you again. And they want me to repeat the message that your Akashic records are for you and they're for everyone, and there's nothing to fear. But I love doing this work. I see myself primarily as a healer, and so everything I do, I like to do it coming from a place of healing and helping people to empower themselves to do their own healing work. And thank you very much for all of the emojis coming in, and thank you everybody. Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming. I hope to see you next week. The remote Reiki session is available for free for everybody who are LearnitLive member. It's taking place on next Thursday, 1 hour earlier than this session. So I'm terrible. I'm terrible at working out time zones, but I think that's 11 a.m. Eastern. So anybody stateside, maybe you can sneak in a little remote Reiki before you go get your turkey on. But yes, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to have you here, and I really appreciate your presence and engagement with this. It's been wonderful. Thank you for listening to Into the Blue channeling. Please do like and subscribe to receive about our upcoming episodes. See you next time.